All right, let's dig into some truly wild claims today, because the layers of deception we might uncover in the Joe Exotic case, well, they can fundamentally rewrite what we thought we knew. Welcome back to the deep dive. We take sources, break them down, and hopefully give you those crucial nuggets, a shortcut to being really well informed. Today, we're plunging back into a story that just refuses to stay quiet, doesn't it? And it raises that age-old question, what happens when the very foundations of a huge criminal case start to, crumble? When that line between villain and victim gets impossibly blurred. Yes, we are talking, of course, about the wild, perplexing, often bizarre world of Joe Exotic, a name pretty much everyone knows now from Tiger King.
Oh.
So this deep dive is based on some recent and I think pretty crucial source material. We've got compelling excerpts from a YouTube interview. It features Tim Stark and, importantly, Alan Glover, a really key player in the original case. And as if that wasn't enough, we're also dissecting a sworn affidavit signed by Alan Glover himself, dated September 10th, 2021. Our mission today really is to rigorously unpack these sources. We want to reveal these startling new claims, these admissions, that could fundamentally challenge the story we all heard about Joe Exotic's conviction. We're talking serious allegations, perjury, claims of entrapment, a whole lot more that might completely shift your understanding of what really happened. We know a lot of you have followed this story closely, and today we're bringing you some new pieces of the puzzle that honestly might make you question everything you thought you knew. Get ready for some potential moments here.
Indeed. And what's so fascinating and frankly quite concerning here is the potential for a complete reevaluation. A reevaluation of the evidence that actually led to Joe Exotic's imprisonment. Like you said, this isn't just someone casually changing their story. We're dealing with a sworn legal document, and direct statements from a central figure who now says he lied under oath, which raises an immediate critical question. If a key witness formally recants their testimony like this so profoundly, what does that do to the integrity of the original verdict?
Right.
And by extension, the whole justice system process in this case. The stakes are, well, they're incredibly high.
They certainly are. And just for context, for anyone needing a quick refresher, you'll remember the core charge against Joe Exotic, that murder-for-hire plot, targeting his rival, Carol Baskin. That's what landed him in federal prison. It's the central pillar of the story most of us think we know.
Precisely. And it's crucial to remember Alan Glover in that trial. He was an absolutely pivotal witness for the prosecution.
The key witness, really.
Absolutely. His testimony, is centered around his alleged involvement as the hitman in this plot. He was presented as direct, damning evidence. He painted a picture for the jury, right, about his role, about Joe Exotic's intent, and his account was central to the prosecution getting that conviction. Without Glover's testimony, their case would have been significantly weaker, maybe totally different. His words carried immense weight in deciding Joe Exotic's fate.
But the narrative we thought we knew, it just starts to fracture when you look at these new sources, because what Alan Glover is saying now, it suggests the story we were told was way more complicated and maybe fundamentally flawed. The shift is just so dramatic, it really demands a complete re-examination, doesn't it?
It really does. And this is where the legal, the ethical implications, they become truly significant. When someone recants testimony, especially testimony that was pivotal to a criminal conviction, well, it throws the entire legal process under intense scrutiny. It forces us to ask not just if justice was served, but how it was arrived at, you see. The very foundation of Joe Exotic's conviction, the credibility of the evidence, the process for gathering it, it's all severely challenged by these revelations.
Okay, let's dive straight into part one then. Alan Glover's startling admissions of perjury. Glover, as we've said, a pivotal witness, the supposed hitman. Now, his recent statements are, well, monumental is maybe not too strong a word. This isn't just someone changing their mind, folks. This is a former key witness formally admitting he lied.
And we absolutely have to stress the significance of this being a sworn affidavit. Okay?
Yeah.
This isn't just chatter on YouTube, though that's part of our source material too. This affidavit is a formal legal document. It's a statement made under oath, subject to serious penalties for falsehood. The specific document, the Affidavit of Alan Frank Glover, September 10th, 2021, it carries immense legal weight because it's sworn. It underscores the gravity of his new claims. It implies he understands the serious repercussions. This isn't casual. It's a calculated legal declaration.
And what's truly shocking is Glover's explicit admission, lying under oath. Not just once, but multiple times. I'm going to read directly from the affidavit here. Point 4 states, I committed perjury during my grand jury testimony regarding my involvement as the hitman in the murder for hire. Okay. And then point 5 continues, I committed perjury during my trial testimony regarding my involvement as the hitman in the murder for hire. That's a double admission. He's unequivocally stating he lied, not once, but twice, under oath, in the very proceedings that led to Joe Exotic being locked up.
Yeah, I mean, that is just devastating, a devastating blow to the prosecution's original case. For our listeners, understand, perjury isn't a small thing. It's a serious felony. It means intentionally lying, misrepresenting the truth while you're under oath in a legal proceeding. It's a crime because it directly undermines the entire foundation of our legal system, right?
Right. The whole thing relies on truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It relies on the truthfulness of testimony to figure out the facts and deliver justice. So, when a central witness whose account was paramount now formally admits to perjury in both grand jury and trial testimony, well, it directly challenges the integrity of the entire trial, the validity of the evidence presented. This admission alone creates substantial grounds for appeal. Some might say incontrovertible grounds.
So if the jury made their decision based on testimony the witness now says was false,
Then the fairness, the legality of that verdict is severely compromised. It really is. And this could, in turn, lead to a new trial or even provide a path to Joe Exotic's release.
because the
Right.
core of the case.
The core of the prosecution's case, Glover's testimony, is now being explicitly contradicted by the very person who gave it. It's an extraordinary development. It calls into question the fundamental fairness of the process that put Joe behind bars.
Wow. Okay, so beyond just admitting perjury, Glover also unpacks the alleged murder for hire money, that infamous $3,000. It was cited constantly in the case, wasn't it?
Oh, constantly. The prosecution leaned heavily on that. The idea was this money was paid to Glover as like an advance for the plot.
But listen to what Glover says in the YouTube transcript. He sounds pretty exasperated, actually. I know damn good well $3,000 was not paid to kill Carol Baskins. Everybody knows that. He goes further, too, emphasizing how unlikely it sounds. 99.9% of people in the fucking country know that money was not for murder for hire. It was for whatever you know you're not that stupid to. Take $3,000 to kill somebody. It's not just a denial. It's like he's saying the whole premise was ridiculous.
And this is a critical inconsistency, right? It directly strikes at the heart of the prosecution's narrative about the financial motive. That $3,000 transfer was a cornerstone of their argument, framed as a down payment for a hit. If Glover now explicitly states this money was not for murder, it significantly undermines their whole argument about motive and intent.
So what was it for, according to him now?
Well, the affidavit clarifies this further. Point 22 states, I testified at trial that this $3,000 came from the Cub sale on November 24th, 2017. This is not accurate.
Not accurate.
As I have no knowledge of the park finances and have no knowledge of where the $3,000 came from that I stole. And he emphasizes in the YouTube interview, this money never was intended for murder for hire from either end, from your side or Joe's side.
He says he stole it.
That's his claim in the affidavit, yes.
Yeah.
Which directly contradicts his trial testimony about it coming from a Cub sale. So he's saying the financial transaction, presented as proof of criminal intent, was fundamentally misrepresented, both its source and its purpose. It reframes the whole financial angle from a criminal payment to, in his words now, stolen funds he took for his own unrelated purposes. That's a huge shift.
Huge. Okay, and what about his intentions for that Florida trip? The trial presented that journey as like a key part of the plot. He went down there, supposedly, as the hitman scoping out Carol Baskin. It was used as tangible proof that Joe's alleged plan was actually moving forward. But what does Glover say now?
Again, a complete contradiction. Points 24 and 25 of the affidavit state. I traveled to Florida for a couple of days, but I didn't travel to Florida to warn Carol Baskin of the murder for hire, or to stalk her, or to kill Carol Baskin.
Okay, so why did he go?
He continues. My plan was to leave the park was not a secret. I made the short trip to Florida to party, completely unrelated to Carol Baskin.
To party.
That's what he states under oath now. Not a murder mission, just a party trip.
Wow. That completely changes the story on that piece of evidence, doesn't it? Makes a significant part of the prosecution's case seem, well, utterly irrelevant, if true.
You've hit on a crucial point there. This detail is absolutely pivotal because it directly dismantles another critical piece of the narrative the jury heard. The prosecution really leveraged that Florida trip, right? Presented it as tangible evidence the plot was advancing, that Glover was actively pursuing the murder. If his true intention was just a party, completely unrelated to Carol Baskin, then a significant portion of the original story was, as he now claims, fabricated, or at least grossly misinterpreted. It makes you question how much of the original story was constructed around, circumstantial events rather than actual criminal intent, and how those events were maybe shaped to fit a predetermined narrative.
Right, like twisting facts to fit the story they wanted to tell.
Potentially. And that kind of misdirection, if it's proven true, profoundly impacts the credibility of the entire case built against Joe Exotic.
Okay, so keeping those startling admissions from Glover in mind, the perjury, the money, the Florida trip, let's unpack this even further. Let's turn to the alleged mastermind behind all this manipulation, Jeff Lowe. The sources paint a really stark picture of Lowe's role, not as some victim or just a witness, but as the alleged master con artist behind it all. Glover describes Lowe as completely involved in setting Joe up. He says he himself was conned and misled by that little bastard. Pretty strong words.
Very strong. And it immediately brings to mind that concept we mentioned, entrapment.
Right. How does that work here if Lowe isn't actually law enforcement?
Yeah, that's the crucial nuance. Traditionally, entrapment is when law enforcement or their agents induce someone to commit a crime they otherwise wouldn't have. Lowe wasn't a cop. However, what Glover describes Lowe as the alleged orchestrator who then involved federal agents creates a scenario sometimes called agency entrapment or derivative entrapment. It suggests Lowe essentially acted as if he were an agent of the state manipulating Joe Exotic into a crime. The law views this with deep suspicion.
Because it looks like the government creating crime, not just catching criminals.
Exactly. If Lowe, driven by his own motives, set Joe Exotic up and then used that setup to get federal agents involved, well, the lines of ethical and legal conduct become incredibly blurred. It could potentially invalidate the whole prosecution, regardless of what Joe Exotic might have said or felt before the setup.
So what exactly were Lowe's alleged motivations for this whole elaborate setup? According to Glover's affidavit, what was Lowe after?
The affidavit lays out some pretty clear alleged motives. Point 7 states that Jeff Lowe wanted full ownership of the park and wanted Joseph Maldonado Passage off the park by any means necessary.
Get Joe out, take the park.
Seems to be the core of it. Point 9 goes further. Jeff Lowe told me that he wanted Carol Baskin dead and discussed ways to do it so that he would get full ownership of the park.
So Lowe wanted both of them gone, Joe and Carol.
That's what Glover alleges Lowe told him, yes. It wasn't just about getting rid of Joe. And if that wasn't enough, Lowe also apparently wanted Joe behind bars for committing fraud, according to point 11.
Okay, so it sounds like a multifaceted agenda. Get Joe out for fraud, maybe get Carol out of the picture too, and then Lowe gets full control. Pretty clear personal gain driving it all, allegedly.
These motives provide a really powerful, coherent why for the elaborate setup Glover describes. Lowe didn't just dislike Joe, apparently. He had this profound, multi-layered financial and ownership incentive to remove both Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin from the equation. If Lowe could get Joe off the park, maybe get Carol out of the way. He stood to gain full control, full ownership of that lucrative, if bizarre, enterprise. This provides a strong, coherent motivation for allegedly orchestrating a crime. It suggests the whole plot wasn't a genuine criminal thing by Joe Exotic, but maybe a calculated, self-serving move by Lowe to achieve his business goals.
Using the justice system as a tool to do it?
Potentially, yes. Using the federal justice system as a tool. And that's crucial for understanding the alleged entrapment claim. Lowe's personal gain, not the pursuit of actual justice, was the alleged driving force behind the whole thing.
Okay, this is where it gets really compelling. How did Lowe allegedly, and I quote point 17 of the affidavit here, create the entire murder-for-hire plot from start to finish? Because this wasn't just planting an idea, was it? The affidavit details this chilling, step-by-step progression.
It does. It's quite something.
Glover states Lowe initially discussed a plot to kill Joe Exotic himself.
Right, that's in point 10, allegedly suggesting a grotesque plan to tie a wire between poles to decapitate him.
Unbelievable. Then Lowe approaches Joe about alleged fraud, records it, but Glover claims this was, quote, faked in an effort to put Joe in jail. That's point 11.
So attempt number 1 fails, maybe.
Apparently, because then, according to point 11 again, Lowe allegedly worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife agent Matthew Bryant to create and coerce the murder-for-hire plot against Carol Baskin.
So now the target shifts to Carol, allegedly with federal agent involvement from early on.
And finally, Lowe explicitly instructed Glover point 14 to ask Joe if he wanted Carol dead and to offer himself as a hitman. This sounds less like an investigation uncovering a crime and more like a theatrical production writing one into existence.
The layers of this alleged setup are, well, they're truly disturbing, profoundly unsettling for anyone who believes in a fair legal process. It wasn't simply about waiting for Joe to say something incriminating. It was, according to Glover now, about actively constructing a crime from the ground up, manipulating the narrative and then coercing a witness to participate and lie within that manufactured framework.
Coercing Glover.
It's exactly. This sequence of events, if it's true, raises fundamental questions about due process, about the validity of the evidence presented at trial. If the crime itself was manufactured by someone with a clear motive to benefit financially, and then federal agents allegedly got involved in coercing its development and the testimony, it just deeply compromises the integrity of the whole judicial process. It shifts the focus dramatically, doesn't it? From Joe Exotic's alleged criminal intent to the alleged criminal behavior of those who supposedly set him up so meticulously.
Yeah, it really does. It suggests a proactive approach, like you said earlier, inducing the crime rather than just discovering it.
Precisely.
And crucially, Glover makes it very clear in his affidavit. He says, I never intended to kill Carol Baskin. I was never going to kill Carol Baskin. I never engaged in an overt act to kill Carol Baskin. That's point 18. He also reveals in the YouTube transcript, it sounds like he's acknowledging his own part, but saying he was pushed into it. He says to Tim Stark, I understand you were just going because you didn't like Joe, so anything you could do to get rid of him, you were all for it exactly.
Acknowledging Stark's animosity towards Joe.
Right. Then he continues. But you let Jeff Lowe fucking get you involved in a murder for hire when it was all set up by him, and you knew that, and that's why you did it, because you thought Jeff covered your ass, and now you found out that he threw you under the fucking bus.
Wow. So he's saying Stark knew it was a setup by Lowe.
That seems to be the implication in that exchange, yeah.
Exactly.
And Glover himself admits Joe did joke about Carol being gone. That's in point 12 of the affidavit. It says, Joseph Maldonado Passage always joked about wishing Carol Baskin was gone because of the financial stress she caused him.
Okay, so that distinction is absolutely critical for understanding the true nature of the alleged crime here. While Joe Exotic might have indeed expressed a strong, maybe inappropriate desire for Carol Baskin's death.
Joking about it, as Glover puts it.
Joking, wishing, whatever it was. And the affidavit acknowledges that. But the actual plot, according to Glover's sworn statement now, did not originate with Joe, nor was it ever intended to be carried out by Glover. Instead, Glover explicitly states it was orchestrated by Lowe, with Glover himself as a manipulated participant who had no genuine intent to harm Carol Baskin.
That shifts the blame significantly.
Hugely. From Joe Exotic being the mastermind of an active murder plot to potentially being the target of an elaborate setup, it's the profound difference between expressing, a dark fantasy or a desperate wish.
Which might be unpleasant, but not necessarily illegal in itself.
Exactly. Versus actively commissioning a murder that the alleged hitman now claims he never intended to carry out and was coerced into even pretending to consider. This dismantles the core argument of criminal intent on Joe Exotic's part, at least as it was presented by this key witness.
Okay. Now let's talk about maybe the most unsettling aspect of these revelations. The alleged involvement in coercion by federal agents. This takes it up another notch, doesn't it?
It really does.
The sources indicate federal agents weren't just passively observing this whole twisted plot unfolding. They were allegedly actively involved in shaping Glover's testimony, shaping the narrative. Glover states in the YouTube transcript that Jeff Lowe had the FBI and shit involved, and that he, Glover, didn't know the fucking FBI were involved with bullshit.
The seriousness of these claims just cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
And they demand immediate, thorough investigation, frankly. If federal agents were indeed involved in coercing a witness to lie, or in developing a false narrative just to secure conviction, it strikes at the very heart of prosecutorial ethics, the integrity of the justice system itself.
Because they're supposed to uphold the law, not bend it.
Precisely. The law grants significant power to federal agents, to prosecutors, but that power comes with a profound responsibility to uphold truth and fairness, to ensure due process for everyone. Allegations like these suggest a potential egregious abuse of that power, which could completely invalidate the proceedings against Joe Exotic and, honestly, undermine public trust in law enforcement more broadly.
It moves beyond just procedural error, right? This is potential governmental misconduct.
Absolutely. Which could fundamentally compromise the entire case.
So let's get specific. What does this mean for due process, for the fairness of Joe's trial? Glover details how both Lowe and federal agents allegedly poached him, systematically preparing him. He says upon returning to Oklahoma, Lowe began instructing me what to say, how to say it, and what to do in order to have Joseph Maldonado Passage indicted for murder. He told me that I needed to be on the government side and not Joe's side. That's Affidavit point 31.
Explicit instructions on how to frame things.
And Lowe even rehearsed the story with me multiple times, according to point 32. Then, regarding his interactions with the agents themselves, Matthew Bryant and Amanda Maxfield Green, his supervisor, Glover states, They told me during trial prep that if I did what they asked, then no charges would be brought against me now or in the future. That's point 40.
That sounds like a direct quid pro quo. Cooperate, say what we want, and you walk.
Exactly. And maybe most damning, point 43. Amanda Maxfield Green and Agent Matthew Bryant instructed me what to say to make sure that my story matched theirs to ensure Joe was put in prison. During this meeting, they discussed trial strategy and all the individuals who would be testifying at trial.
To ensure Joe is put in prison, not to ensure the truth comes out.
Right. And incredibly, point 41 adds, they repeatedly told me not to text to avoid putting things in writing.
Wow. That provides a chillingly clear, detailed picture of alleged coercion and manipulation. And if it's true, it represents a catastrophic failure of the justice system. The implicit threat of jail if he didn't cooperate, coupled with explicit detailed instructions on what to say, how to present it, it points directly to potential governmental misconduct. The goal, according to Glover, was explicitly to ensure Joe was put in prison, rather than simply uncovering the truth, whatever that might be. That is a severe breach of ethical and legal standards.
Because agents are supposed to investigate impartially, right?
Right, not manufacture crimes or coerce false testimony just to get a conviction. And that instruction to avoid texting, avoid putting things in writing, that's particularly insidious, isn't it?
Yeah, why tell them that?
It suggests an awareness, perhaps, on the part of those giving the instructions that these actions were improper, that they could be problematic if they were documented. Such alleged behavior compromises not only the fairness of Joe Exotic's trial, but the very principles of justice and due process our legal system is supposed to be built on.
It's alleging not just encouraging a witness to lie, but actively fabricating the whole narrative.
Exactly. Fabricating a narrative and potentially the evidence to support it.
And it goes even further than that, doesn't it? Even the crucial phone recordings, the ones presented as foundational evidence in the original trial to prove Joe Exotic's intent. Even those seem to have been compromised, according to Glover.
Yeah, this part is also deeply troubling.
He states in point 37 of the affidavit, these phone calls with Jeff Lowe were set up and staged. Jeff Lowe lied to me about recording these calls. The statements I made were not true, but were statements made at the direction of Jeff Lowe in order to indict Joseph Maldonado Passage.
Okay, hold on. If key evidence, like those phone recordings, which were absolutely central to the prosecution's case, meant to capture Joe's alleged criminal intent if they were set up and staged.
And the content dictated by Lowe.
And allegedly reinforced by federal agents. It just utterly undermines the very foundation of the evidence against Joe Exotic. This takes us beyond simple perjury.
To potentially manufacturing evidence.
Manufacturing evidence, yes, which is an extremely grave accusation. In a court of law, if evidence is found to be manufactured or coerced, it can lead to a complete dismissal of charges, a reversal of a conviction. Fabricated evidence just pollutes the entire judicial process. It makes it impossible to ascertain truth or deliver justice. It calls into question the veracity of the entire investigation and trial. It leaves virtually no piece of the original prosecution's case untouched by these allegations of corruption.
So let's try and connect all these threads now. Discuss the profound implications for Joe Exotic's conviction. If Alan Glover's affidavit, his recent statements, if they're true, and again, he's taking significant personal legal risks to make them. What does this mean for Joe Exotic's conviction? We're talking admissions of perjury from the key witness, serious allegations of entrapment, coercion by a co-conspirator, Jeff Lowe, and even federal agents allegedly involved.
This is where we connect the dots, and the legal ramifications are just profound. Nothing short of profound. If the testimony of a key witness is now admitted to be perjured, and that testimony was allegedly coerced, fabricated, even based on manufactured evidence by those involved in the investigation and prosecution, then the conviction absolutely cannot stand. It just can't.
Legally, it's completely undermined.
Completely. This creates exceptionally strong grounds for appeal. A new trial would almost certainly be warranted, wouldn't it? The original trial would have to be viewed as fundamentally unfair, lacking due process, tainted by prosecutorial and investigatory misconduct. And depending on the extent to which these allegations are proven, yes, it could even lead directly to Joe Exotic's release from prison.
Release, because the very foundation of the evidence.
The very foundation of the evidence that secured his conviction would have been demonstrably undermined. The entire legal system relies on the integrity of witness testimony, the fairness of the investigative process. When those principles are compromised to this extent, as Glover's affidavit alleges, the legitimacy of the conviction is irrevocably damaged. Continued incarceration based on such tainted evidence becomes a grave injustice.
It sounds like a monumental breakdown of due process.
That's exactly what it sounds like. A monumental breakdown that demands a re-examination of the entire case, with a strong possibility of a very different outcome.
Okay, there's another critical detail from the affidavit that jumped out at me. It raises more questions about the trial's fairness. Point 49. Joseph Maldonado Passage's trial attorneys at the public defender's office never requested my deposition or a meeting. I never spoke with them at all.
Yeah.
That seems really unusual, doesn't it? Especially for the key witness, Alan Glover.
It is indeed not just unusual. It's highly problematic, deeply concerning, particularly for a key witness whose testimony was so central to the prosecution's case. In any significant criminal trial, a robust defense strategy would typically involve deposing or at least meeting with every key witness for the prosecution. You have to.
Why is that so important?
Well, the purpose is to explore their credibility,
Yeah.
understand the nuances of their story, identify any inconsistencies, prepare for cross-examination. You need to know what they're going to say and how to challenge it. If Joe Exotic's defense team didn't even depose Alan Glover, the guy now claiming he was coerced and committed perjury, it suggests a significant failure in the defense strategy.
Or maybe they didn't have the resources? Or didn't know what Glover might say?
It could be lack of resources, or maybe a lack of access to critical information that could have challenged the prosecution's narrative. We don't know for sure why. But whatever the reason, this detail further highlights the potential for an unfair trial. It bolsters the argument that Joe Exotic's due process rights might not have been fully protected. It leaves a gaping hole in the defense's ability to thoroughly scrutinize the very testimony that ultimately led to his conviction.
Right. Okay, let's circle back to Alan Glover himself for a moment. Consider the immense personal risk he's taking by coming forward now. What's his motivation? In the YouTube transcript, he admits, if he tells the truth now, he's going to be so much shit, he knows he's exposing himself.
He absolutely does. Perjury charges are serious.
But he also seems to believe that they're so after Jeff right now, presumably Jeff Lowe, that he might get some kind of deal. He mentions Rule 11, which you explained might offer protection or leverage for cooperation.
Yes, Rule 11 in federal procedure often relates to plea agreements or cooperation deals. It can offer certain protections or reduce charges in exchange for truthful testimony against others.
So it sounds like he's caught between a rock and a hard place, but maybe making a calculated decision, weighing the risks.
I think that's a fair assessment, and it's crucial for assessing the credibility of his new statements. The immense personal and legal risk he's taking by recanting previous sworn testimony that could land him in serious trouble. It suggests a powerful, compelling motivation to tell what he now claims is the truth. People don't typically expose themselves to such severe consequences without a very strong reason. His belief that Rule 11 might offer some protection suggests, yes, a calculated decision. He's weighing the shit he's in from his past, lies against the potential for a different kind of legal leverage if he cooperates now, especially if authorities are focusing on Jeff Lowe. This lends significant weight, I think, to the sincerity of his current admissions. They aren't made without immense personal sacrifice and a very real risk to his own freedom. He's choosing, as you said, to face the music. That often implies a deep conviction in the truth he's now presenting.
Okay, let's widen the lens a bit now. Let's move to some broader connections, unanswered questions, because the sources also contain other serious allegations against Jeff Lowe and his associates. It paints an even darker picture of the whole environment surrounding the main plot.
Yes, there's more in the affidavit beyond just the murder-for-hire plot specifics.
Right. Glover mentions having personal information about James Garretson, Jeff Lowe, and Lauren Lowe. And get this, involving sex trafficking and credit card fraud. That's point 47.
Sex trafficking and credit card fraud, those are extremely serious allegations in their own right.
Extremely. He also states that James Garretson, another key figure in the original story, would offer me prostitutes. And even more disturbingly, that federal agents were texting me pretending to be prostitutes. That's points 45 and 46.
Okay, wow. While these allegations are technically separate from the core murder-for-hire plot against Carol Baskin, they paint a broader, profoundly disturbing picture. An alleged environment of serious criminal activity surrounding Jeff Lowe and his associates. This context, if it's proven true, could be highly relevant. Relevant to understanding Lowe's character, his motivations, his willingness to allegedly engage in the elaborate setup of Joe Exotic.
It suggests a pattern of behavior, maybe?
Potentially. A pattern of behavior, maybe an ethical vacuum, that could lend further credibility to Glover's claims about Lowe's manipulative tendencies, and furthermore, that claim about federal agents.
Texting him pretending to be prostitutes.
Yes. That is incredibly concerning. If true, it raises severe questions about the ethical conduct of the federal investigation and the tactics employed. This moves beyond just coercion of testimony in one specific instance. It suggests a potentially deeper level of misconduct that could further compromise the entire integrity of the agents involved, not just in this case, but potentially any case they've handled.
It paints a picture of tactics that are not just questionable, but maybe illegal, morally reprehensible.
Absolutely. Those are fair descriptions if the allegations hold water.
This deep dive, it truly reveals how dramatically a narrative can shift, can't it? When new information comes out, especially admissions of perjury, claims of coercion from a key witness, it forces us to re-examine everything we thought we knew about the whole Tiger King saga, to wonder about the hidden truths beneath those sensational headlines. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? The story we see isn't always the full picture.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this situation is such a powerful reminder of the critical need for constant critical thinking, especially when we consume information from highly sensationalized cases like this one. The legal system, it strives for justice, but it's ultimately reliant on truthful testimony and fair ethical processes. When those fundamental elements are compromised, as Glover's new statements allege, the entire system gets called into question. It highlights how initial narratives, no matter how widely accepted or emotionally compelling they seem, can be fundamentally flawed. Flawed when the underlying evidence is tainted or, as alleged here, actively manufactured. It forces us to look beyond the surface, doesn't it? To scrutinize the process itself and to demand accountability for the integrity of justice.
And just one brief, intriguing mention from that YouTube interview, Glover refers to a silencer lady. She says, the one that I had to talk to that day in Oklahoma City. Oh, yeah, look at her damn name, but she's a fucking judge now. Don't want to go up from her no time soon. It's kind of a throwaway line, maybe, but it certainly raises an eyebrow. Who is the silencer lady who's now a judge?
Yeah, while the specific details are unclear, just from that quote, this kind of tangential detail, often found in affidavits or interviews like this, it frequently points to a larger, potentially interconnected web of relationships that could be significant to the overall story. It adds another layer of complexity. It hints at additional individuals who might have played roles, known or unknown, in these events, and whose current positions, like being a judge now, might be scrutinized in light of these new revelations. It just suggests there's still potentially more to uncover in this already incredibly convoluted saga.
The rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper.
It certainly seems that way.
Yeah.
It suggests the reach of these alleged manipulations could extend further than we even realize right now.
Okay, so let's try and sum up. We've walked through Alan Glover's explicit admissions of perjury, the intricate, disturbing details of Jeff Lowe's alleged setup, the unsettling claims of federal agent coercion, even the alleged manufacturing of key evidence like those phone recordings. These aren't just minor details, are they? They're not footnotes to some colorful story. They fundamentally reshape our understanding of Joe Exotic's conviction. They raise profound questions about the fairness of his trial, the integrity of the evidence used against him.
The implications are immense. If these claims, perjury, entrapment, governmental misconduct, are substantiated, they would render Joe Exotic's conviction profoundly unsound, just fundamentally broken. The legal grounds for his appeal would be exceptionally strong, pointing towards, yes, a new trial, or indeed a very strong case for his release from prison.
Release seems like a real possibility if this holds up.
Based on these specific claims, yes. It highlights the critical importance of a fair and truthful judicial process for everyone. Regardless of how polarizing their public persona might be, the legal system has to function on truth. And if that truth was allegedly subverted, fabricated, manipulated in the ways described here, then justice in this specific case has been gravely undermined. It demands a thorough reevaluation and potentially the overturning of the original verdict.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener, and for the broader pursuit of justice in our country? If key testimony was coerced, if evidence was fabricated, if federal agents allegedly played a role in manipulating a criminal case, what does it say about the integrity of our legal system? And, maybe more broadly, how many other stories might still be waiting for the truth to fully emerge from the shadows of sensational headlines and seemingly settled cases? We invite you to consider the weight of these new revelations, what they mean for that relentless, often difficult search for truth within our legal system. Thanks for diving deep with us today.